Hello everyone. Today we will start with the last topic of the chapter, organisms and population, and that is population interactions. In nature, living organisms such as animals, plants, and microbes cannot live in isolation and therefore interact in various ways to form a biological community. Interspecific interactions occur between the populations of two different species living together within a community. The first one is the predation. It is an interspecific interaction where an animal called predator kills and consumes the other weaker animal called prey. This is a biological control method. It is the nature's way of transferring energy to higher trophic levels, which is fixed by plants at the first trophic level. Example, tiger, which is predator, and deer, which is prey. There are important roles of predators. In the absence of predators, prey species could achieve very high population densities and cause instability. So, besides acting as conduits for energy transfer across trophic levels, predators play a very important role in providing population stability. They help in maintaining species diversity in a community by reducing the intensity of competition among competing prey species. Example, predator starfish. Disaster is the rocky intertidal communities of American Pacific coast. In a field experiment, when all the starfish were removed from the area, more than 10 species of invertebrates became extinct within a year because of interspecific competition. When certain exotic species are introduced into a geographical area, they become invasive and start spreading fast because the invaded land does not have natural predator. Example, the prickly pear cactus introduced in Australia in early 1920s was brought under control by introducing its predator, that is a moth, in the country. If a predator is too efficient, and overexploit its prey, then the prey might become extinct. The predator will also become extinct because of the lack of food. This is why predators in nature are prudent. Prey species have evolved various defense mechanisms to lessen the impact of predation. These are as follows. Number 1. Some species of insects and frogs are cryptically colored, that is camouflaged, to avoid being detected easily by the predator. Some are poisonous and therefore avoided by the predators. Monarch butterfly is highly distasteful to its predators, that are birds, because of a special chemical present in its body. The butterfly acquires this chemical during its caterpillar stage by feeding on a poisonous weed. Now, the second type of population interaction is competition. It is generally believed to occur when closely related species compete for the same resources that are limiting. However, this is not always true. Some totally unrelated species could also compete for the same resources. Example, in some shallow South American lakes, visiting flamingos and resident fishes compete for the common food, that is zooplanktons. Resources need not be limiting for competition to occur. In interference competition, the feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to interfering and inhibitory presence of the other species, although the resources are plenty. Example, when goats are introduced in Galapagos Islands, the Abingdon tortoise became extinct within a decade due to greater browsing efficiency of the goats. Therefore, competition can be best defined as a process in which the fitness of one species, measured in terms of its R, the intrinsic rate of increase, is significantly lower in the presence of another species. This is the example which we have already discussed. Now, competitive release. Competitive release provides another evidence of competition in nature. It is a phenomenon in which a species whose distribution is restricted to a small geographical area because of the presence of a competitively superior species is found to expand its distributional range dramatically when the competing species is experimentally removed. Example, Cornell's elegant field experiments showed that only the rocky sea coast of Scotland, the larger and competitively superior barnacle Balanus, dominates the intertidal area and excludes the smaller barnacle Chathamalis from that zone. Now, Gauss' competitive exclusion principle states that two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. This may hold true in case of limited resources, but not in other cases. Now, the third type of interaction is parasitism. It is the mode of interaction between two species in which one species, that is parasite, depends on the other species, that is host, for food and shelter and damages the host. In this process, one organism is benefited, that is parasite is benefited, while the other is being harmed, that is the host is being harmed. There are special adaptations of a parasite. Parasite is host specific in a way that both host and parasite tend to co-evolve. According to its life cycle, a parasite evolved special adaptations like loss of unnecessary sense organs, presence of adhesive organs or suckers for clinging onto host, loss of digestive system, high reproductive capacity. The life cycles of parasites are often complex, involving one or two intermediate hosts or vectors to facilitate parasitism of its primary host. Example, human liver fluke, which is a tremadode parasite, depends on two intermediate hosts, that are snail and a fish, to complete its life cycle. Second example is malarial parasite, which is Plasmodium, needs a vector mosquito to spread to other hosts. Majority of parasites harm the host. The harm is done in different ways. That is, they reduce the survival, growth, and reproductive ability of the host. They reduce its population density. They might render the host more vulnerable to predation by making it physically weak. There are different types of parasites. Parasites are broadly divided into two main types. The first one is ectoparasite. Ectoparasite depends on external surface of the host organism for food and shelter. Example, lice on humans, ticks on dogs, copepods in marine fishes, and cuscuta, a parasitic plant that grows on hedge plants. Endoparasites live inside the host body at different sites like liver, kidney, lungs, etc. for food and shelter. Example, tapeworm, liver fluke, Plasmodium, etc. The life cycles of endoparasites are more complex because of their extreme specialization. The third type of parasite is brood parasitism. It is an example of parasitism in which one organism, that is parasite, lays its eggs in the nest of another organism, that is host, for the latter to incubate them. The eggs of parasitic birds have evolved to resemble the host's egg to reduce the chance of host birds from detecting and ejecting the parasitic eggs from nest. Example, cuckoo, that is koel, is the parasite and crow is the host during breeding season, that is spring to summer. Now, the fourth type of interaction is commensalism. It is the interaction between two species where one species is benefited and the other species is neither harmed nor benefited. Some examples of commensalism are an orchid growing as an epiphyte on a mango tree gets shelter and nutrition from mango tree, while the mango tree is neither benefited nor harmed. Barnacles growing on the back of a whale are benefited by getting to move to different locations for food as well as get shelter, while the whale is neither benefited nor harmed. Egrets always forage close to where the cattle are grazing. The cattle egrets are benefited by the cattle through easy detection of the insects. When the cattle stir up the bushes, insects are flushed out from the vegetation to be catched by cattle egrets. Sea anemone has stinking tentacles and the clownfish lives among them. The fish gets protection from predators, which stays away from the stinking tentacles. The anemone does not appear to derive any benefit from hosting the clownfish. The fifth type of population interaction is mutualism. It is an interaction that confers benefits to both the interacting species. Some examples of mutualism are lichens. Lichens represent an intimate mutualistic relationship between a fungus and photosynthesizing algae or cyanobacteria. Here, the fungus helps in the absorption of nutrients and provides protection, while algae prepares the food. Another example is the example of mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza show close mutual association between fungi and the roots of higher plants. Fungi help the plant in absorption of nutrients while the plant provides food for the fungus. Example, many members of genus Glomus. Plants need help from animals for pollination and dispersal of seeds. In return, plants provide nectar, pollens, and fruits to them. To safeguard the mutually beneficial system, plant-animal interaction involve co-evolution of the mutualist, that is, the evolution of the flower and its pollinator species are tightly linked with one another. Example, fig and its partner wasp species. The female wasp uses the fruit not only as an oviposition, that is egg laying site, but uses the developing seeds within the fruit for nourishing its larvae. In return, the wasp pollinates the fig inflorescence while searching for suitable egg laying sites. Mediterranean orchid Orpheus employs sexual deceit to get pollinated by a species of bee. One petal of its flower bears an uncanny resemblance of the female of the bee in size, color, and markings. The female bee is attracted to what it perceives as a female and pseudocopulates with the flower. During this process, pollen are dusted from the flower onto the male bee. When the same bee pseudocopulates with another flower, it transfers pollen to it and thus pollinates the flower. One more type of population interaction is Commensalism. It is an interaction between different species in which one species is harmed and the other is neither benefited nor harmed. Example, Penicillium, a mold, secretes penicillin which kills bacteria, but the mold remains unaffected. Predation, parasitism, and commensalism share a common characteristic of the interacting species living close together. So this is all about population interaction. With this, we have completed chapter number 13, Organisms and Population. In our next video, we'll be starting with the new chapter, that is chapter number 14, Ecosystem. I hope you have understood. Thank you.